Mine is titled An Answer to Prayer. In the late 1960s, we moved to Kansas as kids. My father became a minister, and our life was centered around the church and around Christian friends. And in 1973, Dad had a calling to start a church in Englewood, Ohio. And we knocked on a lot of doors inviting people to our church. And for a few of those years, I did not have any Christian friends. Most of our neighbors and classmates were non-Christian, which led for me to turn from my Christian lifestyle to a non-Christian lifestyle. I began smoking at a very young age, and drinking followed soon. I was a very rebellious teenager, and I got into trouble quite often. I remember my father asking me one day, "What's it going to take to turn you kids around?" And I said, "Let's get out of Englewood." For me, Englewood was a bad place, just for me. It wasn't long after that we moved to Winchester, and we attended the Winchester Nazarene Church. They had a large youth group, but somehow I just didn't seem to fit in. It was probably my past or maybe my reputation or just the way I was. Well, once I got out of school, for about 13 years, I still did not attend church. I think I spent more time partying with my so-called friends, my new so-called friends, just about every weekend. And that took a really toll on my life and my family. And I was always telling myself that someday I would get back to church and someday I would become a Christian. But that someday turned into many years. I remember in the 1980s, I was at home and I knew I needed a change in my life. I got down on my knees and I asked the Lord to come into my heart. But I didn't tell anybody. I felt it was just between me and the Lord. And by me not telling anybody, I didn't get much support. That change in my life that I asked for didn't come right away, but it did come slowly. And I remember Pam and the kids on Father's Day one time got me a Bible. I opened it up and I read Ephesians 5:14. And there it said, "Wake up, old sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." And I felt the Lord was always telling me to wake up and to get back to Him. Well, I worked in a factory for about 13 years and I learned how to weld. One day I read in the newspaper that there was going to be an exhaust pipe vendor being auctioned off. And I felt this might be some way for me to get away from the factory and away from my so-called friends and to start a new life. When I got to the auction, I sat in my truck and I prayed to the Lord, asking the Lord to help me change my life. And I started to tell the Lord the things that I would do, such I'd stop smoking and I'd stop drinking and I would start going to church. When the time came for the pipe vendor to be auctioned off, the Lord had answered my prayer. I was able to purchase the pipe vendor for about 10% of what it cost new. And I'd asked the Lord for that distraction, and how I knew He'd asked me, how He answered my prayer for that distraction while it was being auctioned off, was after the auctioneer had said sold and he moved on to the next item. People were telling him to go back, that he had skipped over it. And the auctioneer said it was already sold. There was a lot of people there upset because they were there at the auction just for that one item. But I settled up at the auction about 9 o'clock that night, and I drove home. And on the way home, I had a pack of cigarettes in my pocket. And I thought, I'm just going to have one more cigarette, and then I'm going to quit. So I lit up that cigarette, and I threw the pack out the window. I was a litter buddy. I got home, and I was real excited to tell Pam what I just bought. But it wasn't long after that. A few minutes after that, about 10 o'clock at night, I received a call from the auction company that said they were not going to accept my check for that pipe vendor. And they said they needed cash by 8 o'clock the next morning, or it was going to be sold to someone else. Then I remember what I did. I told the Lord, if you would help me with this one thing, I would stop smoking. And I had that one cigarette. And I already broken my promise to the Lord. And I felt the Lord was telling me that if you can't do this one thing for me, why should I let you have this pipe vendor? Once again, I had to ask the Lord for forgiveness. I made arrangements with the auction company to be there at 9:15 a.m. because the bank wouldn't be open till 9. And I remember standing up in front of the bank, and the bank didn't open until 9:02. I was really stressed. But I got there before 9:15, and there was other men there with the machine ready to load up into their pickup truck. So again, the Lord answered my prayer. And I remember telling my so-called friends that I planned to start a business, and that I had quit smoking and I had quit drinking. And about 2 weeks later, I didn't have those friends. Once again, the Lord woke me up to show me that they were really not my friends. My dad once told me that a true friend is someone who brings you closer to Christ. And in July of 1994, we started Discount Muffler, and as far as I can remember, I've been going to church ever since. I've dedicated my life to Christ, dedicated my business to Him, and everything that I have belongs to the Lord. I'd like to read that. Ephesians 5:8-14. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. For the fruit of light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord, having nothing to do with fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. That is why it is said, wake up, old sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. And I am so thankful that the Lord woke me up through that answer to my prayer.